Hello, friends. Welcome to Dumblings Dumps.
I'm V,
And I'm Chelsea.
and today marks our first episode of Dumblings
Dumblings
Dumps
Dumps.
podcast. So this episode we'll be diving into the topic of friendships. We're gonna be talking about our own friendship story and just our experiences with friendships, like
In
making
general.
friends.
Yeah.
In general, making friends and friendship breakups. So
Yeah.
we're really excited. So let's get into it, I guess.
All right. So, how are we feeling today?
Excited. This is our first podcast episode.
I know. And I think like a good thing to just kind of like first talk about, this podcast is just how we became friends.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to just kind of introduce ourselves and like show like who we are. But yeah.
Yeah, and we've been planning for this for a really long time too.
I know. So we've actually been friends, I will say, probably since middle school.
6th grade.
Yeah. And, now that we're kind of ending our high school careers, it's just kind of nice to look back at all of the nice memories that we made the past, I want to say, like, 7-ish years?
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah. That's a long friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very, like, underestimated the fact of, like, how friendships can really last.
Yeah.
And I think, like, this is a very important part of, like, adolescence. Of just, like, we were, like, very immature when we met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were so immature.
I think, so we first met in cross country of 6th grade. Yeah. And if you don't know what cross country is, it's just basically...
long distance running.
Yeah, it's a long distance sport. And in middle school, they considered that a mile and a half, I think. Which now I can totally do, no losing or anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a marathon back then.
It was. And I think I had just I transferred into the middle school that I went to. And I think that was like your natural school.
Yeah,
right?
That was like right by my house.
Yeah, so you already knew a lot of people and I didn't.
Yeah.
And so how I recall the story of us being friends was at a water fountain.
I recalled it like in the gym.
I don't remember because...
Dude, we have such like bad memories. Like, cause I remember that so vividly. I literally don't remember any water fountain.
I do. Or maybe like it was just a simple conversation that we had. And it just like stuck with me.
I don't know. Cause for me, I remember so vividly. I just like walked into the gym. And then all of a sudden, I see this girl with her roller backpack.
Okay.
Walking up to me. And she's like waving at me. She's like, "Hey, V." And I was just like,
wait, how did I know your name
already?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I was confused. And so I was like, whoa, who's this girl? I'm like, how does she know my name? But like, okay, cool, I guess. She seems chill. So like, yeah. And that's how I remember meeting you for the first time.
I can picture it. So, when I was in 6th grade, I was probably almost approaching like 5 foot. I don't know. Let's not talk height. But I had these really purple. I had these purple round oval glasses.
Yeah, I remember.
And I had mismatched leggings and a bright colored shirt. And I rolled around the most annoying,
most embarrassing
roller backpack because it's so hard on the shoulders.
I know.
Like, my shoulders are, like, so weak right now.
I know.
And I will, like, forever thank my, like, middle school self for having a roller backpack. But I will say the amount of feet that I had rolled over was too many. And the side eyes that I got, the side eyes. Oh my god, yeah, there was a couple of stairs I had to go up. So
Hauling that thing up the stairs is
I had to, like, push down the thing and then, like, hold it by the handle and just carry it by my side.
Yeah, I always bullied you, too.
Yeah.
I was like, you're such a loser.
But you know what? Don't ever let bullying get to you.
Yeah, guys. Don't bully people. Only bully your friends.
That's such bad advice. But yeah, the way I remember it was we were in a PE locker room. So where we are, most of like middle schools and like high schools, they have locker rooms where it's designated only for PE. So some high schools have like locker rooms or lockers like along the side of like the hallways. We only have a locker room for PE specifically. So I remember like going in there in my PE clothes or something, and then like you were by a water fountain, and I was just standing next to you, just chatting up to you or something. And I think it was when it was after school when we were preparing for a cross country meet, and then I think that's just kind of where it started. But I know that you
Mm,
recalled it as we were in the same PE class.
yeah.
I don't remember that.
You
I
don't?
don't remember being in the same PE class as you.
It's either we were, like, I don't think you were in my PE class. I think we were just in the same gym as me. Like, because there's like four PE
Hmm.
classes at the
Oh
same
wait,
time,
because I had
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's how. But then that's like even more why I was confused, because I was like, this girl's not even in my PE class.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
But I think our friendship grew more specifically in cross country.
Uh huh.
And I think like the power the thing that I remember the most about our friendship is like the way that we cared for each other.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely unique, and I know I'm talking like that like this all happened in 6th grade, but the fact that it happened like so early, but it felt so like naturally just like mature, that it just kind of felt very cohesive, that when I refer back to it, it's like I'm like 10 times older
Yeah.
or something. You know, like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel real that this all happened in 6th grade. But I
Mhm.
remember when we were practicing for meets specifically, um, I always ran by you.
Yeah. I
And
remember that.
I remember that was like how we developed a really good friendship, was because I knew that at the time, um, I could run a lot faster. And I knew that you were just kind of still like getting into it and everything. And I, you know, during practices, I just kind of like took the initiative of just being like, okay, like, you know what, like, let me support her and let me just kind of like run by her. And then I remember you would always tell me on meet days, you'd be like, no, like, you can't run with me. Like, you have to like sprint, bro. Like, you have to go.
I do not remember that.
I remember. I remember you would tell me that.
Frankly, I don't remember anything from middle school. um, but yeah, I I really liked becoming like meeting you for the first time, because I thought to myself, I was like, wow, this this girl is like the most genuine person I've met so far in my life. And like you already know this, but like in like elementary school and stuff, like I did not have good friends in my life, and I was like alone very often. And to finally meet someone that was genuine and was actually like kind at heart was like a total shift to me. And it was really hard to deal with at first, because I found myself getting really attached to you really quickly, because I was like, whoa, I've never had this before. Like this is too good to be true. And then I started getting scared, because I'm like, oh, I got attached way too quickly. Like, what if she
Mm,
ends up like every other friend I've had, and then they just
mm,
like leave
mm,
me and stuff. And so, like our friendship has been so like rocky, but so like rigid and stable at the same time. And it's like so refreshing to have that after like countless experience with such unstable friendships.
mm. Yeah. And I think that like the beauty of like social connectedness is that we need it as humans, because it's like if you and like I was actually gonna like write an essay on this for my English class, but I was delving into the topic of like the loneliness epidemic and how like loneliness is becoming like a really big thing in like people, where like people aren't outwardly like going for like social connections
Yeah.
or like social outings and stuff to try to like build connections with other people, and that there's like been studies that it actually affects like people's mental health and people's physical health,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that like as someone who even over the years like of our friendship, where like, you know, has gone through like either social isolations or like times where it's just like you've just kind of felt like just really like you like times in your life where you feel like it's only you, or like where you just feel like alone and lonely and stuff. Like it's nice to like have that security of like a really good friendship.
Yeah.
with someone.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like you know each other in and out. You know, like your dislikes, your likes, what triggers you, what makes you laugh, you know. And I think it's nice to have like someone who even isn't in like your own like immediate family. To just have like that social connection with someone else.
Yeah, and it's like I having such an intimate relationship with someone in that sense is so like it's like a need essentially because like you were saying earlier, to be loved is to be known, and to have someone know what you like, what you dislike, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, like to know such like personal details about your life, and still support you no matter what, and not be like afraid or disgusted, ashamed of who you are because this person is by your side no matter what, and like that unwavering support is just so important to everybody's life, and like everybody needs to experience it, but unfortunately, like especially with the pandemic, that was a really difficult time, and like not like no one was able to have that like
immediate connection
and,
with someone.
Needs fulfilled.
Yeah. No, because I was gonna mention another thing. Oh, it was when you were saying about how you need someone supported. I think it also should be valued of like giving the people that like are important in your life reassurance.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's not as talked about as like, you know, like the other stuff that we said. But like I know that, you know, in the course of like my friendship with you, like there have been times where we would just like give each other random letters.
Yeah.
Like we would give random letters to each other of just like plain gratitude. Of just being like, hey, like I really appreciate you. I went through this thing and you know that like I've been through a lot, and like, you know, I just appreciate you like being there, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's just like simple acts of just like reassurance and like guidance, and just like it just kind of makes the friendship more solidified.
Yeah, and like one of the most like relevant pieces of that is, I don't know if you remember, I forgot the context of it, but I I remember we were both going through our own things. You were going through like a really big change in your life, and I was going through my own like kind of like mental health problems, and I I remember feeling like I was missing you, and like we weren't like as close as before or something like that. And it was just because we were going through our own things.
Yeah.
And I remember I kept that bottled up for so long. But then it got to the point where I was like, I need to tell her. So I told you that. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, Chelsea. I just lately it's just been feeling like we haven't been as close as we were before, and I'm just like really missing you and stuff. And I need, like, I know you're going through your own things, but I kind of need your support as well.
Yeah.
And you, like, obviously you took it well. And then like the next day or a few days later, I came to school and you had a letter for me. And
I remember this. I knew it was raining, right?
It was raining.
It was raining.
And it was like
I remember
early
this.
morning.
I remember
early
this.
morning.
It was. I forgot what it was for. I know it was on a school day. I can't remember if it was like sports related at least. But like I do remember like a letter, and like giving you a letter and like all of that stuff.
Rainy day, early morning.
I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, and then when you gave it to me, like you didn't even like hand it to me. It was on the table. You were sitting next to it, and like you barely made eye contact with me. And I was just like, and I was so scared that day. I remember being so scared because I thought, I was like, oh, this is the end of our friendship. Like I just like I was like, oh, I just ruined our friendship. I ruined our friendship by bringing up my feelings, and then like she didn't mess with that, and then now she's calling it off. Like I was genuinely
sounding like a relationship.
Like I was genuinely like so traumatized from elementary school that I was like, I was already ready for it and stuff. And I obviously I didn't read it in front of you, so I just waited until I went to like first period or something like that, and then I read it, and I was like so relieved but also sad because I remember in the letter you just kept apologizing over and over for like you and like it was so sad too because you were apologizing for going through your own life stuff and I was like, why are you apologizing for this? Like you literally can't have any control over it. But yeah, you kept apologizing for like for that, and you're like, I'm so sorry that I haven't been this like as supportive as a friend I should be for you, and that
Yeah.
I haven't been like the best friend for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remembered being so touched and like so, but also so like reassured because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, thank God, like she's not calling it off and stuff. And
Yeah.
like, if anything, like this didn't weaken our friendship; it strengthened it. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, and like even to this day, I still look back. Like I like to go through my old letters and cards
Yeah.
and stuff.
No, I do too.
Yeah, and every now and then I stumble upon that letter and I read it and I get like
Yeah.
emotional because I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, wow, it captured like friendship in essence,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just really touched by that.
Yeah. And like, because you said before, like either like it strengthened it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Psych, guys, plot twist. Um, and this like easily goes into our segue of like friendship breaks.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't necessarily a friendship break specifically.
Yeah, it wasn't explicitly like, let's take a break.
Yeah, but it was just more so that it's like we just never talked to each other.
Yeah.
We didn't talk to each other for like a year.
2 years.
Really? Really?
Was it?
Wait.
It was.
No, I think almost 2 years
Yeah.
actually.
See.
Yeah.
Because it was like the end of junior year that we started
I think so. Oh yeah.
Sophomore,
I do remember.
And then almost end of junior
year. Yeah. So like in high school, we were like bestest friends in middle school. So we went through middle school together, learning more about each other, and then we go into this new environment together, and we trek it like amazingly. We meet.
Freshman year was really good.
Yeah, I don't want to admit. Hey man, I don't want to admit. I don't want to admit freshman. I don't want to admit freshman year was my peak. You know. Yeah, not to say that like freshman year was my peak or anything, but we did have a really solid friendship, and even if like we met so many other different people, like we still always like maintained a good connection, you know. And like, and it was like weird because we really only saw each other at school.
Yeah,
we didn't really have the means to like hang out with each other after school or like on the weekends, just because of like, you know, our own constrictions lives, yeah. You know. So the fact that we kept it strong even in that year, it was really good. But the more that we went into high school, I think the more we diverged because I think we just
our own group of people.
Yeah, we started to like hang out with other people,
making friends.
Yeah, making friends, just, you know, being in different crowds that our lives never really crossed after that.
Yeah, and like we never had any classes together. We never had the same lunch. We'd barely even see each other during passing periods. So like it was like the universe like just cut us off completely.
And like I said before, like we didn't really have a means to like hang out after school or anything. So even maintaining that was hard. And yeah, like people can say the excuse of just like, oh, but you have like social connections, like you have each other's numbers and all that stuff. But it's like
it was just a weird situation.
Yeah, and even me in general, and like this is still something I'm trying to work on. Like I struggle trying to reach out first.
Yeah,
especially over text. Like it really is a struggle for me. Not because I don't want to, but like it's just something that has always just been in my head of just like, oh, like if I text first, like, oh hey, like how are you? Like, does it come off like weird, or does it come off as like not like needy per se, or just like a weird yeah.
And what I found really interesting that I feel just is a testament to the trueness of our friendship was that we felt the same exact way
the entire way.
Like the whole like almost 2-year break we had from each other where we didn't talk, didn't contact each other at all. We felt the same way. I for one, I remember feeling really sad about it.
Yeah.
Like the distance crept up on us like really slowly. And so it took a while for me to realize that, oh hey, I haven't talked to Chelsea in months.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And when I realized that, I was just like, oh well, I feel like that's okay. I feel like that's reasonable. We haven't had classes, we haven't had the same lunch, we don't really see each other during passing period. It's normal and stuff. But it just, that distance just kept on going on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually remember when I tried like reconnecting with you, I'd always say hi to you.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you would say that I had like an RBF.
Yeah, you had
but
an
like,
RBF when you like, I'd be like, hey Chelsea, and you'd be like, hey. And I'm like, oh. So
because you said this was like during sophomore year, right?
Yeah.
So sophomore year was actually like the worst year of my life. Not like I'm over exaggerating. It wasn't the worst, but
it was just a rough time.
It was just a really rough time, and I think a transition from a really good freshman year to like reaching the lowest mentally in sophomore year, it just wasn't a good mix. And so like I just remember just being, that was the time where, like, as I said in the beginning of the episode, like where the social isolation just kind of crept in for me.
Yeah.
You know, and like as you said, like we were just like, the distance got to us, and we were in the same space. Yeah. We were like in a matter of like a couple of meters away from each other, but like we just never like crossed because we had different priorities, we had different people, we met different people that became, you know, important for us,
and we were like going through our own problems.
Yeah.
And it was like really affecting us too.
And I think like, you know, even as you said, like, okay, like we're going through our own stuff, but it's nice to have that sense of reassurance.
Yeah.
I think it just somehow got lost and like murked along the way.
Yeah.
And those types of friendships are really hard to swallow. Mm-hmm. In a general sense of like, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, like having that one person that you really vibed with, but then all of a sudden the distance just got to you, and then now you just don't, you don't really know what to do. And like next thing you know, it's like a matter of like 1 or 2 years, and like, you know, what if they're different? What if it's like a different feeling? It's not the same as it was before. So it's like the question is of like, leave it in the past or try to like
rekindle it.
Yeah. And I think in our context, it worked out fine.
Yeah.
Reconnecting. And like that made it 10 times more stronger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I just remembered being scared because every time I'd say hi to you, you have like that RBF, and we're like, hey. And so I was like, oh, like maybe
she hates me.
Yeah, like maybe she hates me. Like maybe the reason why we stopped talking was like intentional, you know. And I was scared, and like it took me a long time to come to terms with that reality that like, hey, the only reason why we aren't talking anymore is just like a natural reason. It wasn't, and like there's no intention for it to end. It was just distance and new people and going through our own lives,
which is really hard to swallow.
that broke it apart. And so it took me a long time to like come to terms with that, and it was just always a hard thing to grasp. And I remember just seeing you around campus because junior year I started seeing you.
Junior year I saw you a lot more, but that was the time where it's like it's that weird thing where it's like you see someone that you know, but you don't know whether to like, you know, say hi like, or to like do a nod at each other.
It's like I know so much about you, but you're like a stranger.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt every time I saw you. Because I was just like, I was junior year, like we saw each other a lot, and I think the more I saw you, the more it hurt.
Yeah.
The more it was just like a constant reminder. And I remember just being like, should I say hi to her or should I just like let it be? Because it's been like almost 2 years now, no contact. Like, what if I'm the crazy one and I'm still holding on to this and she is completely fine?
Yeah.
And so that was what my problem was. And my fear was that, okay, let's say that I did reach out to her again and I was like, yeah, like it's been a while. We haven't talked in a while. I missed you. Like, let's hang out or something. And then we hang out and you're just a completely different person.
Yeah.
and you're not
And
the
that's like
person
what
I
I said,
became
yeah,
friends
like
with.
before.
And that's what scared me, is that like I'm missing this version of my best friend that I don't even know
Is the
exists
same
anymore.
person, yeah.
And so that was my fear. And I was just like, so that's why I was also so hesitant to reach out to you, because I'm like, you know, I know like the kind of group of friends you're hanging out with, and like it's not like they're bad people. It's just
It's a different
yeah,
vibe.
and it's just not the vibe I look for in a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I'm scared. What if that like kind of friend group rubbed onto her, and now she's like one of them? I know that sounds like an evil thing, like one of them, but like
I think that's just the difference of just like it's like personality A with group C.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the different like blend of stuff, and it's like, are you still true to yourself?
Yeah,
type of thing. You're like, are you still not being, influenced by other people? And again, like that's not to say like, the people that I was hanging out with or the people that you were hanging out with were bad people.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It just was like different
clashing personality.
Yeah, it's just like different priorities of like what's being talked in the friend group or something, or just like a different thing that like, each of us have connected to another specific person per se.
Yeah.
So that's not to say like the people were like bad or anything, but yeah. And I remember just seeing you at lunch like almost every single day, because we sat in a proximity to each other, away a distance that either of us could like go up and be like,
so funny.
Hey, what's going on? And I just remember like seeing you with the boyfriend you had at the time, and I just remember being like, oh, like, is it like a right place for me to like say hi or to catch up or anything? And you were also with like other people that I just wasn't like familiar with myself, so we were both in the same situation of, do we have the means to like say hi to each other? And I think like it made it better when we actually like had the chance to talk with each other with no one else.
Yeah,
that's
the private one-on-one talk.
The private one-on-one talk that we had, and I remember that it was on the day we had a presentation for college.
Oh yeah.
That was, I think, the time where we just kind of like realized like, okay,
like we bumped into each other, and we were like, oh hey, and it was like really awkward at first. Yeah, because like neither of us knew who the other person was. Like, are they still the same person? Are they completely different now? And so it was just like we were like definitely testing the waters with each other. We were just like, oh hey, like it's been a while. How have you been and stuff? And the fact that it took minutes of like just a quick catch up, and then we were back to normal.
Yeah, and then it was just being like, oh yeah, so remember those like those like 24 months where we like didn't talk to each other? Yeah, I thought about you a lot. Oh really?
No, really? Me too.
And so it was just like a twin telepathy type of stuff. It was just like a twin telepathy of just being like, oh, like, you know what? Like, we are literally just the same person.
Yeah, we are literally the same person. And I love that so much. Like,
it became just so easy.
Yeah. Like that whole like reconnection after the 2 years, basically. And the fact that we just started talking to each other like normal, like nothing ever happened to us, just like proves how deep our friendship ran.
Yeah.
And it really, because I feel like if you have like a friendship break like that, where you go 2 years without talking to someone, and then 2 years later you guys meet each other and then start talking again, one of two things are gonna happen. One, you could either be like, oh hey, it's been a while, like how have you been and stuff. It's like, oh, I've been good, I'm busy. It's like, okay, cool. And then it kind of ends there, you know. Yeah. Like, it's just really awkward, and someone makes an excuse to like go, like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment
to go to.
Yeah. And yeah, it was great seeing you again. It can either go like that, or it could be like, oh yeah, I've been really good, how about you? Like, yeah, I've been really good. Like, I got a job or something. I got a pet dog. Do you remember in freshman year when like we had that Spanish class together? Yeah. And it's just like
rekindling memories, I think, is like a good part in like, I don't know, maybe rekindling something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's nice to just kind of like look back at those things because like that's the commonality that you share.
Yeah.
Like like you can be like distances apart. You can be like totally two different people, but like it's just a weird phenomenon of just being like, oh wait, I was like at this specific thing with this specific person, and they have that same memory of me, and like and I think that's something that like we kind of held on to, and then we just kind of like realized like, oh, you know what, like we are still kind of the same, of just being like, oh yeah, remember that thing, oh yeah, like that was weird.
And it's just like our personalities have rubbed off on each other so much.
I think just over the years, that you just
because,
like it just became one.
Yeah, middle school we're like absolutely inseparable. Like we were joined at the hip, and we were essentially the same exact person in middle school. Like we had the same hobbies.
Yeah.
We had the same interests.
And that's not to say we don't have it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we still do.
Yeah. Like we even had the same like YouTube feeds. Because I don't know if you remember, we were like on a call, and you were telling me, you're like, oh, I've been seeing a lot of videos on like journaling, and I was like, no way, me too. And then we both pursued journaling after that.
I remember.
That was so funny.
And I think just an important part of our friendship is the fact that, again, we always had each other.
Yeah. I feel like we shared the same values too.
Yeah. Especially when we rekindled. Obviously it was awkward at first. It's gonna be awkward when you first like, encounter someone that you used to know really well. But once you kind of just like get past that border, or just kind of like, in our case, like address it, of just being like, yo, like that was like weird.
That was kind of a crazy time.
Yeah, and I feel like that's very like Gen Z behavior to just kind of address it like forefront. But that really is just the easiest way of like getting over things, But unfortunately, like that's not always the case.
Yeah, and it's just like, I feel like the biggest part that plays a role in friendship is like you guys, you're gonna be friends for like a long time, for years on end, and you can't expect the other person to be the same person.
Yeah,
because that's just that's not realistic.
That's not realistic, and that's not a standard you should have.
Yeah, and people change. Like that's a fact.
People change, feelings change,
thoughts change, mindsets, values.
Yeah,
and your friend is gonna change, and so are you. And as a result of that change, it can lead to friendship breakups. And that actually happened to me recently with my friend. We were friends for almost 2 years, and it was just such a good friendship. I loved her. We loved each other. We made such good memories together. Every time we talked, it just ended in like a fit of laughter. It was, but unfortunately, like nearing the end of our friendship, I had matured a lot, like surprisingly, in that super short span of time, where I just started putting myself first, and that was like the first time I'd started doing that. That was the first time I started thinking about myself for once. And I remembered my friend was going through a breakup, and she was always talking about her ex, complaining, like, the normal stuff.
Yeah.
And I completely related and understood her pain, because I had also gone through a breakup of my own, and I completely supported her throughout all her rambles and rants about her ex. And like I gave my all to support her and give her advice, and she just never took my advice. She never really considered it. And I'm not mad at her for that, because
you're your own person. You're your own person to like make the choices that you make.
Yeah. And like I can give all the advice I want, but that doesn't mean she has to take any of it. And I wasn't expecting her to take any of it. The thing that made me upset was just that it didn't even seem like she was considering my advice.
Yeah.
And she was just, because I was telling her, I was like, if you keep doing this or if you do that, like, it will make it worse. Like, you're not giving yourself the time to heal from your own breakup. And I fear that the things that you're doing now will only make it hurt more because you're kind of
Yeah.
just like distracting yourself right now and you're not allowing yourself the time to feel your own feelings.
And that's so important.
That's so important.
Especially
with a breakup.
I see value in like deeply feeling things. Sometimes it's just like for me, which is like a weird thing of just being like the more like you feel it, the more like at least for me, it like kind of tries to help me understand what like the context of the situation is and like where things kind of like went wrong per se.
Yeah.
Which is like you can interpret that any way you will, but that's just how I see things of just like you need to like let your like mind and your body and your soul to just kind of like actually feel things.
Yeah, like you need to hurt from a breakup.
Yeah, or else you're not gonna be 100% from that point on.
Yeah, and it's like if you don't let a breakup destroy you and like make you cry every single day and just destroy your person,
yeah,
you're never gonna grow from it. You're never gonna learn from your own mistakes because you're obviously not perfect. No one is.
mm-hmm.
And you might have had that breakup because you or your partner wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
But if you're just gonna pretend to be okay and bury your feelings of hurt under whatever you want, then how do you expect to learn from your mistakes and learn what do I value in a relationship and why did that relationship not work out for me? Mm-hmm. And what can I do to be a better person? Because I can try as much as I want, but if I can't, my partner won't change. That's their responsibility.
Yeah,
they're responsible for their own lives and their own behaviors. But I can change the way I perceive things, the way I react to things, and the way I feel things. And by letting your feelings hurt you, you're able to mature.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what you underwent.
Yeah.
That's what you went through, but she was still at the time, like still trying to navigate.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of reached a point for you.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, it dawned on me that I was overwhelmed, to be honest. I was overwhelmed with the constant talk about her ex. And I felt like such a bad friend for thinking that because I acted the same way with my ex. And I didn't want her to feel like, oh, it's okay for me to do it, but not, or it's okay for you to do it, but not me. I didn't want her to think that. But it really just came down to my boundaries. And I was just like, I can only do so much as a friend. I can only support you and give you so much advice before I get tired and I get burnt out. And I just needed some space to breathe and kind of not talk about her ex for once. And I brought that up to her, and she didn't take it very well. She got upset. Reasonably, I understood completely, but she didn't really appreciate that, and I completely understand. And I told her I just needed a break. And so we took a break. We didn't talk for 2 weeks. And I think those 2 weeks was a really good time for me that I took to kind of process my own feelings and like
reevaluate stuff.
Mm-hmm. And during those 2 weeks, I was able to kind of get my like these like bottled up feelings out. And by the end of it, I was like starting to miss her. But at the same time, I was like, I reevaluated everything, our friendship and the values that we held, and I just had this realization that we saw friendship differently.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a friend as this, but she saw a friend like that. She she thinks a best friend is someone who supports you unconditionally no matter what, even if you think they made a bad decision. But I see a best friend as someone who supports you unconditionally no matter what, but holds you accountable to your own actions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna hear you say, I just ran over a family of three and be like, oh, okay, well, that's their fault for being in front of your car, you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, dude, what the heck? Go tell the police or something.
Yeah. Like, why being sneaky?
Yeah, and then like you can't get mad at me for wanting to like hold you accountable because you just killed a family of three. Like,
this situation is crazy.
Like, you have to have some accountability and responsibility for your own actions. Like, you have to be mature enough to be like, okay, I have two options. I could go with the good option or the bad option. If I go with the good option, all of this good stuff will happen. It will benefit everyone. But if I do this bad option, it really has no benefit and it might actually make me worse off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the bad option. You know, and I will advise you to my best ability. I'm like, please, please, please go with the good option, but I can't control you. I can't stop you from making
that choice. Yeah. And I think that's like at the end of the day, like as friendships are important, like you are your own person. The choices that you make, like obviously will affect like other people, but most importantly yourself.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's something that like people should, if they haven't been aware of, like start kind of just like putting that in their head of just being like, you know, there are times, and if not all of the time, like you should just put yourself first.
Yeah.
If you feel like that you're not being valued, you are not being seen, get out.
Yeah.
Or like in the most politest way. In the most politest way, like as like a normal human being to another human being, like just kind of, you know, like what you did. Just kind of reevaluate the stuff of just like, is this important for me? Is this helping me in any way? And like if there is something that like you just don't like, like not want to give up yet, then like okay, like you can address it. But if it's not being addressed, then like something has to be done. And that's the really saddest part about friendship breakups. And like as someone who hasn't gone through anything as intense as that, like, you know, disagreements are still a thing.
Yeah.
Things that happen between friends, like conflicts are still a thing. Obviously like trying to communicate and trying to see each other's side is the most maturest way that you can go about it as possible. Which obviously I think we're still trying to grow into it, be like more into it, of just like realizing that it's like if there is something that you need to talk about, like you need to have that initiative and that drive to just like address it forefront and be like, hey, like let's talk about this thing. And like I am very like proud of you for, you know, addressing it the way that to the best of your abilities that you can. No problem. But yeah, like, you know, that's even another hard pill to swallow of just being like
putting yourself first.
And as friendships are very important, like make sure that like the people you surround yourself with, you are like you can be your full comfortable self with,
and encourage that behavior.
And like foster it, bring it towards like other friend groups that you meet, like bring that same energy and that same kindness along with you, because like it'll go like a long way.
Really, it really does.
Yeah. And so I think that's a good way to
wrap
up our first episode. Just be a good person.
Be a good friend. Make good decisions. Put yourself first.
All of these things like can sound like, you know, like a lot, like, but it'll really come easily when you're with the right, like when you're with the right people and you're in the right mindset.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for tuning in
Yes.
to our very first episode.
Thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh,
twin.
We'll see you in the next one, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
See ya.